Hey guys, what's up? So, today I'm going to go over all the mods on my 2008 Mazdaspeed3. And I guess we'll start with the interior of the car. So to start out, my shifter, it has a TWM full replacement short shifter. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it or not. I may just go back to the stock one and use a short shift plate. But I don't know, we'll see. And then the only other thing in here is I have an access port, the V3. Everyone who has a Mazdaspeed knows about these. I just have a hair tie wrapped around the vent to mount it. So now we'll just go around the outside of the car and I'll go over everything I have done to the exterior. And some things, I'll go over the suspension too, but you can't really see some of the suspension, but I'll just mention it anyway while I'm out there. So to start off, I have 17x9 plus 45 RPF ones all the way around, and they have 245 RE71Rs for tires. For brakes, I have the StopTech slotted rotors. It's actually the entire sport kit. It comes with pads, rotors, and steel brake lines, and they're pretty good. They're pretty decent upgrade from the factory. And then something you can't see is I have Cork Sport coilovers all the way around. It drops it about 1 inch from OEM, and it rides a little bit firmer, but it's still very, very comfortable. And then another thing I have up front, let's see if I can get down here and see it. I have that gold mount right there. Is actually a White Line anti-lift kit. It mounts on the back of the control arms, and it gives you half a degree of caster, and I have to say I really like it. Even with full motor mounts, I still had a little bit of wheel hop sometimes, but ever since I put these on, I haven't had any. It just spins if it's gonna spin, and no hop. That's pretty much it for the suspension up front. I have the stock sway bar up here, but in the rear, of the car, I have a Cork Sport rear sway bar set on the stiffest setting, and it makes the rear end rotate more. With the OEM one, it was hard to get it to rotate, but with this on there, it makes it easier for autocross. And then I also have Rally Armor mud flaps all the way around. It just keeps rocks from getting on the paint. And then this, I have a C&T Catbat exhaust. It's all 3-inch and a 4-inch tip. And this is my battery relocation. All I did was cut this mount. Off for the spare tire, and then I bolted this to the floor, and then it just holds my battery. And then this positive cable routes up and underneath the carpet, and then this right here is the ground cable. There's actually a bolt right underneath it here that I use for the ground. For fueling, I have the OEM basket and the top hat, but all I did was drilled a hole for a bulkhead fitting, and this is a 6AN line, and I'm using that as my feed. And then right underneath the line, let's see if I can see it. Yeah, right underneath the line, that's the stock feed line, and that's being used as a return now. And in the tank, there's a Walbro 450. That's pretty much it for fuel back here. Okay, now we're at the engine bay, and this is where like 90% of my mods are, and the money, of course. So I guess to continue with the fuel line actually routes up right here, runs all underneath the car, and it's held up with these rubber clamps right here, all underneath and in the engine bay. And then it splits off to a Y right here, and one line goes here to this secondary rail, and then this other one just routes beside the rail, and it goes all the way to the high pressure fuel pump right here. And in the high pressure fuel pump, I have a Cork Sport internals upgrade. Every speed is like the first mod that every speed needs. And then continuing on from the rail, the secondary rail, it goes to a regulator. It's set at about 40 to 42 psi at idle currently. And then the return just goes right here underneath my boost controller, and then you can see that 180-degree fitting right there. That's where the stock feed line comes up at, so I'm just using that as the return. And that's not it for fuel. I also have 4 1000cc injectors. They're from a Flex Fuel Silverado, and when they're decapped they flow about 1000 cc's, and they're very cheap. They're like 125 bucks, and they fit perfectly with the Damon's Motorsports ST manifold kit. This is the Damon Motorsports ST manifold adapter kit with 8th port injection. They offer it with meth or port injection. I opted for port injection since my turbo is big enough to need it. But the ST manifold has very even flow, and it flows a little bit more than the OEM one does. But one thing about the ST manifold is the throttle body actually points straight down instead of to the side. So you have to have like a custom cold side intercooler piping. But for me, it wasn't that hard to customize it. All I did was cut it a little bit and added a straight section with a 90, and it was pretty easy to do. So I would imagine most people can just modify their intercooler piping to accommodate the ST manifold. So speaking of intercooler piping, my intercooler setup, it's all underrouted underneath the car, so you can't really see it, but I do have a TR8 front mount intercooler. And I have a GFB blow-off valve. I don't know if you can see it in there, but I have a GFB blow-off valve, and it's full VTA right now. And also I have dual catch cans. Let's see if we can see them in here. Yeah, you can kind of see it. You can see that weld, those welds right there. That's my vintage can. It's from Cosmic Motorsports. And then on the passenger side is my sealed can. It's actually a custom one. You can see that octagon right there. Well, actually it's a hexagon. You can see that hexagon right there. That's my custom sealed can. And then I have the Damon Motorsports PCV plate. It goes underneath of the manifold. And I do have upgraded injector seals for the OEM injectors. So the motor was actually built by the previous owner, and the reason the motor was built, it had a spun bearing, but the crank was still good. It just needed to be polished, and it needed oversized bearings. And then he went 88mm Wiseco pistons and Manley H-beam rods with a JBR balance shaft delete. So, and the head is stock springs, everything's just stock on the head, no porting or anything. I can't remember if it has OEM head studs or if it has L19s, but either way it's good enough for my power that I'm going to be putting. For motor mounts, I have all 3 Damon Motorsport, the rear, passenger, and the transmission. And it's easier to see the transmission motor mount over here, or I guess it's not a transmission motor mount, but it's just a trans mount. So I have all 3 Damons. Damons are the best overall mounts. They're the best quality, the best ride, and the best performance. It's a really good blend. And then for my intake, I have a Ramfab 4-inch intake. And then I have a Precision 5858 dual ball bearing turbo with a .82 AR exhaust housing, and it's a V-band as well. V-band in and out. My exhaust manifold is actually a custom tubular built manifold. And for my wastegate, I have a 46mm Precision and it's an external gate obviously, but the dump is actually just straight to the ground. It's not rerouted into the exhaust or anything. And then my downpipe, it's kind of hard to see. The downpipe is right there. It's also a custom 3-inch downpipe to my CNT catback. And the catback, the CNT exhaust actually has the resonator deleted, so it's just one muffler. And my ECU is just mounted right here where the OEM battery box used to be. There's just one bolt right there, and I had to modify the mounting, the backing plate for the ECU. I modified it a little bit so I could bolt it right there. And then this right here is my split-second fuel controller. It controls the injectors for the secondaries. This is the 4-injector model. This is my watt box from N2 NB. All it does is make flat foot shifting easier when you're spraying a lot of extra fuel, like I plan to be. If you're not using a lot of secondary fuel, you don't really need it. But if you're under 500 wheel horsepower, you're probably fine just using the access port. But if you're around 500 or going above it, a lot of people recommend to just go get a watt box. So it's a little hard to see past all these hoses and stuff, but I actually have a Gen 2 trans. They have a little bit longer gearing than the Gen 1s do, which is better for when you're pushing a lot of horsepower. You just have a lot longer gearing. And my clutch is actually a South Bend Stage 3 endurance clutch. So I'm actually having some issues with my clutch right now. It rattles. It still works, but whenever I push the clutch in, it rattles. Or whenever I push the clutch in, it stops rattling. Whenever it's out, it is rattling. And when I use my AC, it rattles really bad. But there's also oil coming out of the bell housing, so I'm not sure what's going on in there, but I'm gonna have to make a video on dropping my trans and finding out what's wrong with it. And that's one of the reasons why I haven't fully finished tuning it yet. Once it's fully finished tuning on E85, well, it'll be a 50-50 E85 and 91 blend. But once I fully tuned, it should be around 550 wheel horsepower. And I'm being tuned by Will at PD Tuning. He's really good and really fast, and he helps his customers out a lot. So if you ever need a tuner, Will is definitely a really good tuner. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have done to my car, and all of that is good for around 550 wheel horsepower. The limiting factor of my setup is actually my turbo, because my fuel system is good in its current state. It's good for about 700 wheel horsepower, and my motor is probably good for around 600, maybe a little bit more, but I have my turbo as the limiting factor just for safety mostly. And also the 5858 is a pretty good blend between having a lot of horsepower and actually being able to drive it on the street like reasonably. Well, that's pretty much all I have done to my car. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Ask me any questions in the comments if you'd like. I'm pretty sure I missed a couple things, but for the most part, that's it. And there's going to be a video coming, I don't know when, about the trans, but I'll be posting a video about once per week. So hopefully I can get it done within the next couple of weeks, and I'll have a video out on it. Oh, one thing I did forget, Austin Burner, he actually did a little video on my car a few weeks ago. And if you'd like to check it out, I'm going to leave a link in the description. So go ahead, check it out, and leave a comment on his video.